Video lesson 2.8, the Mongols. So we're going to start talking about the Mongols today, and these are the people who Mongolia is named after. So I suggest watching this video before doing the DBQ, and if you didn't, then that's okay. Just make sure that you go back and check your DBQ, and maybe some of the parts you don't understand are a little bit more clearly. So first of all, this is a picture of the Mongolian Empire. So you can see this is where Mongolia is today, but borders are man-made. So they are nothing but lines that people agree upon to be the borders of different countries. We know China is kind of right here-ish, and all of this is Russia, and these are various countries in the Middle East, which we will learn about next class. So, and we see Japan over here, water, water. So the Mongolian Empire went all the way from the Pacific Ocean all the way to the Black Sea and almost to Europe. So this is Turkey right here. This is Russia. Very much a vast empire. And the leader of this vast empire who built this huge tract of land and consolidated it under one leadership was named Genghis Khan. So what we're going to do now is watch a little video that is on YouTube that I like a lot, and I think we've watched it before. And so I just provided the MLA citation for you just to reinforce what those MLA full citations should look like. But as we watch this video, make sure that you keep an eye on where China is and also where this Mongol Empire and when this Mongol Empire and how quickly this Mongol Empire rises up and spreads across Asia. You can see this is about 2000 BC with our timeline down here. And China and India are starting to develop civilizations, as well as the Roman Empire. China is still kind of hanging out by itself over here. Remember how it's isolated. This is during the Tongan Song. And now the Mongols, that big spot of blue. So I hope you noticed where they started and how quickly they really took over such a huge tract of land. So this is much bigger than China is and much bigger than any empire ever was. So how did they create such a vast empire? To start from the beginning, the Mongols began as kind of pastoral nomads. So this means they raised animals, they were pasture, is where that word pastoral comes from, and they moved based upon seasonal changes. So wherever there would be grass is where they needed to take their animals and make their pasture. So they would kind of move around. So the Mongols had these movable homes called yurts, which are pictured here. They're also very famous for their horse riding abilities and how they used horses in warfare, and we'll get to that. But one of the reasons they were so good at riding horses is because they were these pastoral nomads. So they rode their horses everywhere, and it was really a huge part of their culture and their life. So just to show you again how quickly the Mongols spread through their empire, this map is nice because it has the borders of modern-day countries. So this one is China, obviously. This one is now Mongolia. And we have Russia, huge, right? So we can see as time progresses how quickly the Mongol Empire expands. And this is kind of the breakdown. Once it is at this point, you can see it goes all the way into Europe, all the way up to Finland, and across here we got all of China, Korea, into India a little bit, Afghanistan and Pakistan, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Turkey. All of these countries are under one empire. It's kind of crazy. So how did they do this? Politically, they had a hierarchical leadership. So the leader or the emperor was called the Khan, And so that's why Genghis Khan is called the Khan. It's almost like saying King Genghis. And he was supported by many powerful families. And they incorporated loyal subjects into the military. And they had one unified legal code called Jagash. So the Jagash allowed them to enforce the same laws in all of their different parts of the Mongol Empire. And so with this hierarchy, there were different Khans established to be part of, to be in charge of kind of smaller sections. There were still pretty large sections. Those were those 4 different colors that you saw on the last map. But under all of the Khans were under one great Khan. And so Genghis Khan was kind of the first one to really expand the Mongol Empire to that gigantic stage. And he was known as extremely ruthless, but he was extremely successful because he did unify and create this vast empire. And your DBQ is going to get into a little bit more detail about how ruthless, but also how successful he was at creating this successful and large empire. And so this all happened around the year 1200, so kind of right where we stop with the Tang and the Song. So what actually happens is Genghis Khan takes over China around the end of the Song dynasty, which is in 1276, and how they did this was that they began transforming their nomadic people into ruthless warriors. So they used their exceptional horseback riding skills to be better in battle and be faster in battle. And they also had a Mongol bow and arrow, which was extremely deadly and extremely accurate. So this was something that, even though the Chinese had gunpowder, they couldn't really face. So you can see how Genghis Khan kind of pushed through all of these different areas and really conquered all of Asia to make the Mongol Empire its final largest size. So they created this empire based on their masters of cavalry. So they were soldiers on horseback. So pretty much a cavalry is a regiment of horseback riding soldiers. So all of their soldiers rode on horseback. So that was something that armies throughout history didn't really do. They also had those superior bows and arrows that they used, which I was just telling you about. And because they had a rigid military organization and training, all of their soldiers were exceptionally well trained and very efficient, and so they were very successful in battle. And they had a reputation for total warfare. One of the reasons Genghis Khan was known for being so ruthless was that he would destroy anything in his path, no matter if it was man, woman, child, village, whatever he saw and whatever he came across, he would completely destroy it. And they knew this, so oftentimes they would submit to him to avoid this total destruction. So with this massive territory, they were extremely diverse because it was all those people who we know to be very different today. But these were also people who were existing civilizations. But because they submitted to the Mongols, they were very, very different from each other. They were not unified culturally. So you can see these are all the different kind of religions and ethnicities that were occurring in the Mongol Empire. And so to get over this, the leaders were famously known for their religious toleration. If you are tolerant about something, that means you tolerate it. It means you can stand it or you accept it. You let it be. So the word that is currently being blocked by this picture is toleration. So T-O-L-O-R-A-T-I-O-N. So they were very diverse, but because they were very accepting of all their people and they didn't force them to be unified culturally, the people were more likely to be satisfied by Mongol leadership. So once again, we can see the visual of this large Mongol Empire, but the red line going through here, you can see, is something that you should be familiar with. We have the Silk Road going all the way to Venice, Baghdad, Aleppo, Constantinople, Delhi, all the way up through Moscow and into Europe, and all the way through China. So we can see that this area marked here is called the Yuan dynasty, and the Yuan dynasty is the dynasty that was established underneath the Mongols. So the emperor of the Yuan dynasty, who took power after the Song, had to submit to the Great Khan. And then the rest of these khanates and sultanates are those smaller regions that I was telling you about. But notice that this major trade route is the Silk Road. And so because of that, the Mongols become very powerful. If you have control over the entire trade route, you're able to tax, you're able to control all the trade, and you're able to scrape something off the top of everybody's profits. So these expansive trade networks of Mongol Empire led to massive international contact and trade. And it also led to extensive support of the arts and merchants. So because of this trade route, there was a lot more flourishing of arts and artisans and smaller traders. And they also needed a way to communicate along these trade routes. So they unified a written Mongol language. And that is basically how they substantiated this vast Mongol empire. So then Kublai Khan, as I was saying, successfully invaded China, establishing the Yuan dynasty, which lasted until 1368. So this is Genghis Khan's grandson, and he was basically the other major Mongol leader. And the Yuan dynasty was a little different because each of these kind of smaller regions, khanates, dynasties, sultanates, under the Mongol Khan, had a little bit of their own difference, which also allowed the Mongols to build that successful state. So they forced obedience, which ended the civil service exam. They also created a social system that discriminated against the Chinese. So they definitely let them know that the Mongols were in charge. As you can see here, the Mongols were the highest, and then the non-Han population, who we traditionally think of as ethnically Chinese, is sort of, they're known as Han. And so those non-Han population, who were Islamic, were right underneath the Mongols. And then there was the northern Chinese, the Han population, and they were kind of next to the bottom. And then the native Chinese people were the lowest on the social ladder. So this kind of forced everybody to be directly under the Mongols and really solidified Mongol rule in this social system. And it unified China in the sense that they were all unified with every other civilization that fell under the Mongol Khan, because they were all kept subservient to that Khan. They were not allowed to take power and overthrow him. So that is one of the ways that the Khans solidified their power and were able to build this vast empire. So now our next steps here are to take the video quiz and complete the DBQ on the Mongols. And I will see you on Thursday or Friday.